Ms. Healy. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Michael, how are you?
I'm just fine. So, in light of the recent events in Newtown, Connecticut, is there anything that you'd like to say to the Blindbrook High School community? Any changes that we should be expecting in our daily routine? Any reassurance of our security? Anything that you'd like to add? Just please let us know.
Okay. Of course, the Newtown situation is a terrible tragedy, and our hearts go out to the people of the Newtown community. This is, I think I would like to assure students that this is a very unusual situation. This isn't something that we should expect. That said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be prepared. And so I think that this is an opportunity for us to look at our security and to assess what are the strengths of our security system and what are the vulnerabilities, and for us to address any vulnerabilities that we find. I think that students will probably experience, students will certainly have a drill on a lockdown. We had originally scheduled one for October 11th, and we changed it because we got rained out of a fire drill. Okay. And so we decided that it was better to do the outdoor drills while in the warmer weather, when the weather was good, and a lockdown drill could be done during the winter months or the colder months. So that was a conscious decision on our part. Right. And so we will be planning to have a lockdown drill sometime in January, I expect.
Okay. All right. All right, so thank you for commenting on the situation in Newtown. Now to shift focus a little bit. Mm-hmm. Hurricane Sandy was obviously a storm that happens once in a lifetime, something that rarely ever happens. It brought devastation to the entire New York tri-state area and severely affected our daily lives during that week. As a result of that storm, Blindbrook was closed for that week, and it basically used up the entire allocation of our snow days for the 2012-2013 school year. How is the school responding to that deficit as of today?
Well, I think that teachers are working very hard to adjust curriculum and to make judgments about sort of what is essential in terms of what students need to know and do, and what they might have included if they have extra time. And so I do think that teachers are on track from that perspective, and they have cut out some of the sort of the nice to know things, or the lessons that they, and sometimes enjoy doing, right, in order to make some adjustments. That said, we have missed several days of school, and also we've had several interruptions. We really didn't have 3 weeks of 3 5-day weeks, right, until November, and are well into the school year, which is an unusual circumstance. Our September calendar was somewhat truncated due to the religious holidays and long weekends, and so it was hard to get traction. Right. But I think that we've come back, and people are digging in and have serious purpose, and are working to get back on track. I also know that some teachers have actually offered extra lessons, much the same way that happens in the spring around Regents time or AP, right, review time. I know that there have been teachers who have offered after-school lessons in order to make up some of the time, mm-hmm, lost. Right. So I think we're coping as well as we can. Okay.
And, I mean, there's obviously only so much you can do with a shortened school schedule.
Of course.
Now, from what many people know, that there is a 180-day school requirement for students set by New York State. Why specifically does our school need to be set by New York State? Why can't we just say, once 179 days? Why can't we just lose 1 day?
Well, those are state regulations, and we are public school, and we are required to follow state law. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a school law, and mm-hmm, and we need to follow all of the regulations that pertain to school law, from the requirement for 180 school days to the requirement for what can be served at a school lunch, right, to any number of regulations are, mm-hmm, things that we are required to follow. That said, school districts can set calendars that are longer than 180 days. And typically in Blind Brook, we have set calendar that is longer than 180 days. We normally are in session 181 days.
Okay.
All of this is complicated by the fact that we have teachers' contracts as well, and teachers are contracted to work a certain amount of time, and so those are also issues that play into the whole situation.
So you're saying that it's really comes down to a teacher's contract regulation and state law that is preventing us from, losing a day or two here and there, and not getting and fully meeting that 180-day requirement.
Right. Well, I also think that I think I'm going to start and kind of explain the 180-day requirement. Every year we are obliged to set a school calendar, and that school calendar is set in agreement. The board adopts a calendar in agreement with the Federation of Teachers, so that there is some understanding there. And when and it usually happens in the spring.
Okay.
In the spring, this calendar was set, and it included 2 superintendent's conference days that occurred before September 1st.
Okay.
And at that time, superintendent's conference days that occurred prior to September 1st were not counted as school days.
Okay.
Could not be counted as school attendance days. However, superintendent's conference days after September 1st could be.
Okay.
Subsequent to the adoption of the calendar, the state changed the regulation and decided that superintendent's conference days, where, by the way, students do not attend.
Right.
Students are not in attendance, can be counted as student attendance days. Well, we had planned not to change our calendar.
Right.
We still had 181 days in our calendar, plus 2 weather days, foul weather days, so for a total of 183 student days. Subsequent to this, the state changed its mind, and so technically we could count those 2 August superintendent's conference days,
right,
where no students were in attendance, as school days.
Okay.
In addition, there are 2 2 weather days built into the calendar.
Right.
So that would account for 4 of the 5 days that we missed, if the board chooses to look at it this way.
Right.
And then the way our calendar is set up, if we needed an additional weather day, March 25th, which is the first day of the spring break, was designated. It says, if a 3rd snow day is required, school will be in session on Monday, March 25th, 2013. So that is the provision. So on some level, we could be covered.
Okay. By this one day during spring break.
By the one day, March 25th, and those 2 superintendent's conference days. Technically, because we schedule 181 days, the Board of Education could actually decide not to use the March 25th day, could say we're going to have only 180 days in session. However, at the last board meeting, the board did express concern about that loss of instructional time.
Okay.
And both in terms of whether students would be prepared for Regents exams, whether students would be prepared for AP exams. But I think even more than that, sort of the principle of the thing, and the notion that we want our kids to get as much education as possible.
Right.
There were other people who argued that this was a storm of the century, storm of a lifetime,
right,
an event that was so out of the ordinary that we can't sort of follow the ordinary measures.
Right.
In addition to that, there may be some dispensation from the state legislature, although in the past that has come usually after vacation time has been exhausted.
Okay, so you're expecting that if there was going to be legislation in New York, in the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate, it will probably take place after spring break, after February break, and too late for our needs.
Well, they may make they were supposed to have made a decision in November.
Right.
They often make, as I said, for other storms, in other circumstances where there have been prolonged numbers of school days that have been missed, they have given waivers to schools, but those waivers have been granted only to schools who have exhausted their vacation days.
Okay.
So, and I assume that decision will be made in January, but I don't really know.
Okay.
And really, as much as I want you to understand that I'm trying to explain a situation, but I am not really a part of the decision-making
Right.
around this. This
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a Board of Education decision.
Right.
And a decision that's made at the superintendent level, the Board of Education level, and also at the state legislature
Right.
level.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for clearing up these misconceptions about the 180-day requirement. I'm sure this will clear up some of the misconceptions everyone has had over the past few months after this hurricane. So thank you very much for sitting down with us today.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you.